The last paragraph on page Yud. And this is
I noticed.
so there was a lengthy discussion here. In general, pointing out.
If it stays like such a small class, you could go upstairs. I don't know.
What?
If the class remains so small, you could go upstairs.
No, we'll see. As far as I'm okay, never mind. I'm here. In principle, we discussed the Inyan that there is the Inyan of Ratzon and oneg that do not have any differences. They come equally everywhere. And then there is the way the Inyan is in Chochmah, in Sechel, where there are divisions, the differences. And the reason for that is because Sechel comes behagbola, whereas Ratzon does not come behagbola. And the principle of behagbola is the principle of pnimiut. Pnimiut means that as it relates to kelim, it actually is imbued, it's bislapshus in the kelim. It is not there just present as a separate entity, but it's actually bislapshus and it relates to the kelim totally. And in order to relate to kelim, you have to be misamtzim according to the kelim. This is the infant Hagbola. So we have Klolos Inyan and then Bekitzer and then we'll go on to the next Maimer. Klolos Inyan, in general, because this was a lengthy discussion of Torah and mitzvahs and so forth. So it says the Klolos, in general, the Inyan is the Ho'eres ve'ha'keiches, that the Oeres and Koichim should go in bebchinas pnimiim, those Oeres and Koiches that come in a pnimi manner, harei bebchinas Hagbola. Here the pnimi is distinguishing pnimi not from chitzoni but pnimi from makif. Those organisms that come in a pnimi, hareihem bebchinas hagbala, they are in a definitive manner. As we just now finished saying, because in order to be imbued in kelim, it has to be in a very definitive manner. Well, okay. The principle of a definitive manner Hagbola for example, day versus night. Day in itself, the sun shines and it is unlimited. But it has a definition. is not an undefined state of being. This is what Hagbala. And they, for example, I said, even though it's all encompassing, that there is a definitive way how we can relate to it, and it can be said, these things you can do by day, and these things you cannot do by day, these things you can by night, and so forth. These are things which are the pnimiut. It changes the entire presence. By day, the world is a different world than by night. This means that it is pnimiut. Just to give us a little bit of a handle on this thing. So, pnimi, b'chinas hagbola. Again, hagbola means that it is a clear definition what it stands for. Va'al kein, and thus, hey, b'chinas is chalkus be'etzem. Because they are b'hagbola, they have an essential distinction between one oir and another. This inyan is chalkus be'etzem, an essential distinction. We already identified that it means that their distinction is not only functional, it's not only as a result of how they're being received, but from their inception there's a difference. Again, for those of us who are with this, again, taking day as an example, day, on a functioning level, there's clearly a difference because day makes it possible for us to see across the street. That does not refer to an essential distinction. This is a functional distinction. Essential distinction means that it is, as I said many times, there's a difference between light and day. Light has a functional definition. It enables you to see things. Day is much greater than being defined as something that enables you to see things. It actually changes the entire worldly presence. There, it can be said that it has an essential distinction. An essential distinction between day and night. From our perspective, what we know is, for example, that by day you can be makrib korbanos, by night you cannot be makrib korbanos. And it's not because you can't see what you're doing, because it's not the proper time for korbanos. This is so to say a principal difference, but there are differences how this Indian reflects on the human level as well. By day and by night, it's a different state of being. Okay. Because they are Hagbala. If they are Hagbala, therefore they are be'etzem in essence separate from one another. Similarly, when these koiches and the oiris are interacting between one another, it's always be in a specific manner and in a pnimiut manner. This inyan is reflected in ruchnis. Where is that? B'teira and b'kavonas hamitzvos. That in Torah and the kavonas hamitzvos yesh chalkus. In Torah, the way things are understood in Torah, everything that's understood in Torah is understood in a different way from another. Every svara in Torah, every principle of Torah has its own parameters and its own oir. For example, this I'm mentioning because we discussed it a long time ago. In Torah there's a deen that if you're not allowed to steal. You must not steal. And then there's also sigzoiv. You must not rob. Zeli means that you confront somebody frontally and grab something from him. Gneva is you take it in stealth. It would seem a similar inyan. You must not steal, you must not rob. Why? Because you must not take other people's properties. Seems to be the same thing, but it's not the same thing at all. And the consequences, as we see from the consequences of stealing and robbing in Torah, are quite different. Punishment and the resultant, the requirements to correct it are quite different. Because, as we explained, the very concept is different. Even though superficially it appeared the same. And the reason that the concept is different, it's true. In both instances, you're violating the godly truth that you must not violate, the things the way they are in the world. This belongs to this person, this belongs to this person. You mustn't violate. But how you do it already shows a difference. Okay. In the Torah, kavonas hamitzvos, in Torah and kavonas hamitzvos, yesh chalkus. There are differences. Kavonas hamitzvos means the reasoning and the principles, the sense of the mitzvah. When a person performs a mitzvah fully, he should have a kavanah, how he relates to the mitzvah. And there's a difference. Of a Ratzon should be mitzvahs, but in the Ratzon there are mitzvahs.
Hello?
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, 1 second. Of a Ratzon should be mitzvahs, lo yesh chalkus. There are no distinctions. In the Ratzon should be mitzvahs, so the Gemara says, al tiyeshe v'shokim v'masar shal mitzvahs of Torah, that there are no elements that distinguish the significance of one mitzvah over another. They're all equally significant. And you must keep them with the same stringency regardless of what it appears on. So, yes, Baruch. Yours.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So I know we've been talking about this in the morning. This is the only chance that I have to ask you directly about it, though. So we said that these correspond, these two things we're talking about, to oneg and Ratzon, and that Torah is corresponding to oneg,
Chochma.
Pardon me?
Chochma.
Chochma, not Torah?
Yeah, Torah is Chochma.
Okay. So it's not corresponding to oneg? I thought we were distinguishing between Ratzon and oneg.
Right. One second. Let me explain to you. This I see that it becomes a little bit vague.
Am I the only one confused about this?
I don't know.
Yes, you are. That was a
Okay,
joke.
then you can explain it to me later, Akiva. I don't have to take up time with it.
No, I was joking with you.
Okay.
He has his tongue in his cheek when he said that.
It's a good place for it.
All right. So see, here's the thing. We are using the of oneg and chochma here almost interchangeably. Not that they are really interchangeable, but there is a very close relationship. As we said this morning, that on the last few days, that oneg is the underpinning of chochma. As we explained many times, the principle of chochma, that chochma has an oneg element in it, because there's nothing compelling about it. It's just you see the truth. You see it because it's there, because you see it. Not like in Bina, where everything's established on its own basis, and identified, defined, and given its reason and so forth. Chochma doesn't go in any of this. Just like in sight, as we always point out, in sight, you see things not because they make sense. You see them because they're there. They're part of the reality. So, and what enables chochma? This is a practical activity. Chochma, you see things, and yet you don't require any substantiation, any reasoning, any concrete definitions. The reason for that is because of oneg.
Because of what?
Because of the oneg element.
The oneg element in the chokhmah.
The oneg element in the chokhmah. And I want to explain, perhaps, hopefully sooner or later we'll get this point. I'll give you the entire perspective, okay? Hopefully we can follow it. The Rambam says that the principle of Chokhmah is that there is a first being. Why is that a principle in Chokhmah? Why Chokhmah is part of Sechel. So the principle of Sechel should be how you structure and what are your proofs of the Sechel. The explanation is that the real in of Chokhmah is not what's proven. If you need to prove it, it's no longer Chokhmah. Chokhmah means that its reality is obvious, and you have the ability to see it. But you're seeing individual things that are not real in themselves. They don't make themselves. How is it that you say this reality? The answer is because you have in the primary knowledge that there is a first being. There is a first being. This first being is the absolute reality. It has an unquestionable presence. Therefore, since there is such an unquestionable presence, and that is the source of everything that's present, even the small things, even the very limited things that do not have their own sense of why they're there, are also attesting to the fact that there is a first being. Why is anything there? Because there's a first being. He is that explains, so to speak. God gives justification for all existence. So then comes to our faculties. Bina does not have that sensitivity to see things at that level. It's there because there's a godly truth. Chochma does. Chochma relates to that kind of that element of presence, of the truth itself. That's why Chochma is based on the principle that there is a first being. Bina is not satisfied with that, because Bina is something which you have to grasp. Okay, the first being, but what is this about? What's its function? What's its purpose? That's the only way for me to grasp it. Therefore, Bina does not have a direct basis for the first being. Chochma is. Chochma senses the truth of this first being through the oneg element, and that's why the Chochma has no problem with relating to existence just the way it is presented.
What's the relationship between the first being and time?
It is in Tainug where that is realized, where that is felt.
Can I ask a follow-up question on this?
What, on my question or on your own question?
No, not on your question.
Okay,
Your
well, wait,
question
let me finish with my question first.
Well, wait a second.
Now,
We
hold
started
it.
this with my question. I want to ask a follow-up.
No, your question takes up an hour and a half.
Follow up until he gets his answer.
Let's fight about
Yitzchak,
it.
take it easy. No, you're angry already. Take it easy.
As long as Rabbi Paltiel remembers that I'm in line with a follow-up.
Everybody take it easy.
He likes me to give
I'm going to let you go
Okay.
first, Akiva, because
poke.
I
you're
know,
older.
but we have to learn. Being in Chochmah now, not in Bina.
Okay. I
Yes.
was just in timing.
Oh, in Tainug, right. All right.
Can I go now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm still trying to understand, because we're now relating Chochma or oneg, Torah with his chalkus, pnimiut and his chalkus, and Hagbola. Masha'ein Kain mitzvahs is his Ratzon,
Right.
and it's universal on his chalkus, on Hagbola. So it would seem that Tainug, okay, I don't know, but I'm trying to understand how Tainug it relates to his chalkus and Hagbola. Tainug would seem to be more lofty, less limited. I don't know if he could be less limited than Ratzon, but it seems to be more makif than Ratzon. And yet we're saying, no, it has a pnimiut element, it has ischalkus, it has hakbala. So I'm not getting that.
Okay. What's your favorite food?
Chicken cacciatore.
Which
I'm sorry, I
grain is your
didn't hear
favorite?
Yeah, with Noach.
Say again?
Thank you, Rick. Please.
So every different food that you eat, there's a taste. And presumably you like that taste, and each taste is different. You like it in a different way. But then there is the Ayin that you're eating it because it's healthy and because you're hungry, for example. The Ratzon, and in that respect they're absolutely equal. You eat because you want to eat. There's no distinction between one and the other. But the oneg, because oneg is that which is Islam, which the oneg at this point, this is not the esemon, it's the oneg be slapshus. So that oneg, it is mislavish in each thing according to its category. We enjoy sweet things, we enjoy sour things. Is that the same oneg? It's very different. Does that satisfy your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense as a mashal, but so is tainuk then? It's not really a makif tainuk?
No. Tainuk is a makif, but then there is that aspect of tainuk that comes through chokhmah, which is mislavish pnimius. This is the called tainuk shebetoira. Tainuk that is in chokhmah.
So every svara from Torah brings a different kind of flavor, tainuk, out.
Right.
And they're different.
Right. Because it's be slapshus. Because the svara is meant that you should really relate to it, not that you should know the reason.
So the tainuk can come into the level of chokhmah, and then it becomes a pnimiut. It comes to his lapshus. There's nothing in that. There's nothing like that with Ratzon.
Right.
Ratzon doesn't ever become a pnimi.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
The relating to it is specifically tainuk, not Ratzon.
Yeah. Ratzon, the reason that Ratzon has a value is not because of the Ratzon, but because of the one who wants it.
Mashenkin by tainuk, it kind of fits with the individual.
Right.
I asked you about the relationship of tainuk to the first being.
Okay.
I'm able to ask a question now, Laura?
No, it's okay. Let's not make a scene out of it. Now
But Rabbi Paltiel, you're becoming a mediator.
we are real learning now. Okay, this is the v'dichasa. Now let's step into the real thing. Because in fact, this is something which is cannot be understood while chewing gum. Things like this. The Indian for Motzu Rishon does not have a Sechel quality. There are no Sechel parameters in it. the principle of Sechel, how Sechel has a structure. Cause and effect, cause and effect. Motivation does not have that structure. In order to relate to the whole concept, please come in, yes, go right through. We displaced them for a while.
In order to relate to what?
In order to relate to the of Motzei Rishon, we have to go to the source of Chachma, which is oneg. Oneg, Chachma also, but primarily oneg, has no requirement for explanation. Why do you enjoy this? Why do you like sweet stuff? Why do you like sour stuff? There's no. It's almost a funny question. Please come in. Please come in. Please come in. Yes. They're sitting right there. Yes, please. This is why I use that interchangeably. Because just like we say, I said that Chachma is based, is fed supported by oneg, and the Rambam says it's supported by the principle of Motzei Rishon. The Motzei Rishon initially is known in oneg, and then afterwards one focuses in and it becomes a principle of knowledge. I know that is a Motzei Rishon. But I know there is a Motzei Rishon not because I found out, not because I met him, but because that's the truth of my neshama tells me. Okay? Yes? Okay, so let's finish that little paragraph. B'teira b'kavonos u'mi'amitzvos yesh yischalkus, u'b'rotzon sheb'mitzvos lo yesh yischalkus. In the rotzon mitzvos there is no yischalkus. There is no distinctions. V'zehu ani havaya. And this is, as we said in the last paragraph, and the seal in the Torah, when it talks about mitzvahs, it gives a mitzvah and says ani havaya. It's interesting. It's throughout the Torah. The Torah it gives a mitzvah and says ani havaya. What is the significance of that seal, of that signing of ani havaya? So we learned this morning that the significance of it is havaya is Yud Ki Vav Ki is the Shem havaya. And the Shem Havaya, this is the Elokus as it descends into the Slapshus, into say the Stalshalos. There's Yud and K, there's Chochma and Bin and so forth. But then there is also in Havaya, in the name, there is the union of Ani. Ani, this is Atzmus. In mitzvahs, there are both of these in them. There's the union of mitzvah, the way the Chochma in it, the Havaya. And then there is Ani, the Etzem, which is the Ratzon of the mitzvahs. The Mechinas Ani Shebahavaya, because it means that in the element of Ani within Havaya, Kol HaMitzvah Shov. Havaya, this is the name Yud Ki Vav Ki. But in that there is the Ani. There is Atzmos itself. Mitzad the Ani, that's in the Havaya, Kol HaMitzvah Shovin, all the mitzvahs are equal. So let's say the Kitzur, and then we'll go to the next line. ולכן הכיחס בעצם הם בהגבולה בישחלקוס. לכן, therefore, because the koichos are individual and distinct presences in the nefesh. So that's what the koichos are be'etzem in essence behagbolo b'schalkus in a definitive manner and in multiple states. That also explains the fact that there are differences in the kavanah of the mitzvahs. Whereas from the perspective of the Ratzon in the mitzvahs, there are no distinctions. And these two categories of the where there is chilukim and no chilukim, in general, is represented by Torah mitzvahs. And therefore, thus, this is what we said at the end of that scene. Einei doime, chiyuv, oisek ha-Torah. The obligation of engaging in Torah is not similar l'hachiyuv b'kiyum mitzvahs, to the obligation of performing the mitzvahs. This is an interesting inner that was brought out. Learning Torah is also a mitzvah. But since that Torah is a minyan hachachma, is slapshus. Therefore, the mitzvah of Oisek Torah is different than the chiyuv of other mitzvahs. In Oisek Torah, there are differences between one person and another. A bigger Talmid Chacham is obligated to learn Torah constantly, and a Balesik, one who is engaged in business and so forth, his obligation is much more narrowly defined. Even though it's a mitzvah. In putting on tefillin, there's no difference between Moshe Rabbeinu and us simpletons. We're on exactly the same tefillin. But how we learn Torah, it's a big difference. And that's, in doing mitzvahs, there have to be two distinct elements, distinct kavanos. What are the distinct kavanos? Distinct kavanos is the kavanah that you're fulfilling a mitzvah, Ratzon Hashem. Hashem said you should do it, and you do it because Hashem said this is Ratzon Hashem. And the other kavanah is, what does the mitzvah stand for? This particular mitzvah, what is the chokhmah and the oneg in this mitzvah? V'zehu shechoisem b'kol parsha, and that explains why in every parsha of the mitzvahs it seals off with the words Ani Havai. Someone is knocking.
Come in.
No, he doesn't hear.
What number is Leibler?
What?
Leibler.
Lieblich?
Guess so, this fellow is looking for Leibler. Lives on the street?
Yes.
Shmuel across the street.
Across the street.
Yeah.
Yes, across the street.
I have the telephone book. Okay. Okay, are we ready to
This one,
go into battle?
the clause is it because this is the end of a whole section.
What?
This piece here. This is it because it's a whole end of a whole Indian.
This was also mentioned before, that in general this is different between Torah and Mitzvah.
No, but he sets up the minor like this, other Maimorim like this?
No. This is the fact that they broke it out in a separate paragraph is just for clarity. That's all.
Okay.
All right. All right, we continue. Oy te oir kasalmo mit shomayim kairio. Translation. Oy te oir kasalmo, he spreads light like a garment. Mit shomayim kairio, he has spread the shomayim, the heavens kairio, like a curtain. Tzorich lehavin. We need to understand Shaychus hu inyoni. The oy te oy v'nei shamayim ze lo ze. The inyonim of oy te oy, it all says in the same pasuk. Oy te oy kasam and the shamayim kari. What is the relationship between these two aspects? Spreading of light and spreading of shamayim. To understand it, yesh lahagdim mashin isboy liyil. We have to revisit what we already explained previously. Behamoshol the koiches hanefesh. In discussing the koiches hanefesh as a moshel. So in discussion, the koiches hanefesh as a moshel. So we discussed sheboim bebchinas pnimiut beivore haguf. That the koiches hanefesh, they function in the volume of the goof, in the limbs of the body, but not as separate entities, just directing the limbs. But they are actually pnimiut. They are actually relate to the Aver totally, and the Aver relate to the weights of the koyach totally. Shall call koyach, which means that each koyach yesh leikelim yuchedes. It has a unique and keli that pertains to this koyach. She'akoyach mislabesh u'misgale, because the koyach imbues, misgale and reveals, u'misached and unites, boy, is unites with this keli. Being that the koyach has to be imbued and reveal itself fully and unite with this keli, therefore it has to be totally suited to the keli. Like we gave the example, the table will start walking all of a sudden. The koyach halaki can make it walk, but it's not being slapshus. You will not be walking the table, but it will be made to walk. The similar thing, we gave the example of animals being trained to act in a certain way that is an uncharacteristic for animals, that they don't really relate to it. That's not ve-klalut. They act in a certain way. It's a training that's acting in them, it's not them. But koiches ha-nefesh, are pnimiut, so they actually be ve-klalut in the Eber. And in order to be established in the Eber has to be suited for the koyach, and the koyach has to be perfectly suited for the Eber. And in the fact that the koyach is suited in the Eber is not sufficient. Besides its suitability, it has to be misamsem according to the Eber. And we said, for example, the koyach hatnua shebiyad, the hand has the koyach, what's called koyach hatnua, the koyach of movement. But this koyach hatnua has to be further identified with something specifically for every specific activity of the hand. This means something, and this means pnimiut. There's an enormous difference, as we pointed out. If the foot would move this cup and the hand would move this cup. The foot would move this cup without ve-klalut, it would just push it away. The hand can actually move the cup. It's moving the cup not because it's strong enough to move it. It's moving the cup because it understands, it has the phenomenon of movement, of moving of a cup. This means ve-klalut. The foot moves the cup.
Inadvertently, it's like.
Even though it be controlling, but it's still, the foot is not moving the cup. It's stronger than the cup, so the cup moves. That's essentially what it is.
You mean to say it's not carrying it?
Huh?
It's not carrying it because
Right.
the hand is carrying it, the foot just moves it. So
Yeah, but please understand, it's true. The point is that he does that action fully.
We once spoke about an or that precedes this, an or that makes the keli accommodate the koyach, that it readies it, so to speak, to.
That's a separate. That's also true. We're not going back to the so. Yes, that's also true. The point is, it has to be pnimiut, and therefore it requires all of these things, and the koyach should be something, and the environment should be appropriate.
What was that or that makes the environment of the Eber appropriate for the koyach? What was that or that goes into every Eber that makes it accommodate that specific koyach that will reside there?
The essential Indian that this Eber has a sensitivity to life.
That's the result of it.
No. This oil, the general oil,
Yes.
brings brings life into this Eber. And this life also is misamtim according to the Eber, because the life element that's in the hand is not similar to the life element in the brain, in the head.
This is an or and nefesh.
Yes, it has a nefesh. Yeah. Be'alkei, every koyach. And we said, mislabesh u'misgala u'misachet boy. Be'alkei, and therefore, lefiyei von hoi vorim, hu po'ulas misgalos atoichois. The effect and the revelation of the koichois is according to the type of aver it is. The koichois, we just now discussed regarding the hand, which is a very fine muscle. The koichois and nefesh are not merely that it's a force. It's a koyach that has that is identified with its function, with accomplishing. We can take Shabbos as an illustration of this principle. Shabbos is also basiyas malacha. Right? Everybody knows the translation of these words. Shabbos is also basiyas malacha. The Isur of Shabbos is not Isur to do anything. It's an Isur to doing a malacha. And malacha has a specific definition. Like we said, the halacha in Shabbos, you're not allowed to carry a handkerchief from a shuz hayochid and shuz harabi. Within the shuz hayochid itself, you can carry a heavy table.
Okay.
There is not a restriction in there. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. You came from Ma'ariv?
Yeah.
I don't know what's doing Ma'ariv here. What's the story?
Some other people might be coming.
Daniel's asking if we're having Mara.
Yeah, we're having Mara. Tell him
Yes.
he's the come.
Just let him come. It's 10 o'clock almost.
Update. Yes, Daniel, we are having Mara. Please come over.
You're
Not having no Mara.
still missing another
You taught
person.
it Mara?
Not yet. How do you teach it?
I don't think you can
Is
do it.
anybody else coming? Because I davened already. So
Yeah, you gotta stay with your house.
I'll stay. So sure.
How's it going?
So this is the pshat koyach. Koyach means not just, well, I can say, a force to move without intent, without purpose. A koyach means it has a definitive significance and purpose of accomplishment. These are the koyach mislabish in the body. The koyach hatnua in the foot is not koyach hatnua; it's koyach hahiluch. It has a specific quality of a koyach, of accomplishment.
You came from India?
You can no, come down. They're sitting in there.
How do we go from the discussion at the end of the mimer, previous mimer, from Torah and mitzvahs, to now we return to this the Indian of the Koichus, the Slavish in the Lord.
I don't know what you're looking for.
I guess I'm looking for continuity.
It's exactly the same thing. It's not continuity. Exactly the same thing. Every koyach is mislabish in specific area.
I know, but before we were talking about Ratzon and Tainuk.
We said the
as-
same
as-
thing is in Ratzon and Tainuk. You have to, we learned the whole minor about that. There was the koyches, and then you went into Ratzon and Tainuk.
So the explanation of
That's it. Now you look over the Maimon and you'll see it's exactly the same thing. When children are daven, you tell them to say Komets Aleph or Komets Beis Bo. That's at a certain stage. Eventually we say to them, don't say Komets Aleph, say Obo. Why say Obo? Say Komets Aleph. Okay?
no, I don't understand that.
Huh?
I don't know where you're leading me.
I'm
Is
leading
that
you
okay?
to.
I'm listening to you.
You want me to spoon feed it? It's not necessary.
Okay. That's fair enough.
So what are we going to have? We're going to have a meeting.
No complaints.
Okay, this is it for tonight.
We would be time with Daniel and somebody else.
What, I'm checking with C, by the way, and also Ron.
la 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 la